Well, I don't know how many of you are going to be here, and I didn't have a pre-roll like I normally do. But to those of you who've done this before, we're on live, and I'm talking to you, and you can talk to me. So welcome to anybody who's new to my live stream. This was something I did when I was running for Congress. So, I'm David Esrati. I'm running for Dayton City Commission. Now, how's this new or different? It's not. I've run since 1993. Yeah, 30 years I've been running. And I've been telling people in the city of Dayton there's a better way to do things. And had you listened, maybe the city would be looking a lot more like Columbus or like Cincinnati or even like Cleveland. Instead, we are leading the nation in demolition. We're creating a beautiful downtown with lots of amenities for people who are not the ones paying the taxes. That's the meds, eds, and feds that seem to run this community. So, as far as the City Commission and what it does, just to update you, there are 5 people on it, 4 commissioners and 1 mayor. Why we have a separate race for mayor, I don't know. This all could be done quite easily with ranked choice voting. It's one of the initiatives that I had planned to bring in if I get elected, along with Shanice Turner-Sloss, who's a big believer of ranked choice as well. But what happens is, one election cycle, there's a race for 2 commissioners and the mayor, and then there's this election cycle where there's a race for 2 commissioners. Now this one is the one held by incumbents Matt Joseph, who's been on the commission for 20 years, and the other one is Chris Shaw, who's been, this will be his 3rd term or 2nd and a half, because he got in on a special, and or did he? I don't remember anymore, but basically he's looking for his 3rd term. Neither of them do much. They're doorstops that are more interesting on the commission. But what the commission does is pretty simple. It is like a board of directors to run to tell the city manager what to do in terms of setting goals and objectives and policies to run this city. And they have to approve all of her recommendations for expenditures, especially large ones. So in Matt Joseph's 20 years, some of the absolute insanity that Shelley Dickstein's been involved in, Shelley Dickstein's the city manager, was where she blighted my neighboring neighborhood, Twin Towers, by going about trying to assemble a 12-acre site for a Kroger. So the Wayne Avenue Kroger could move over and be a super Kroger or some other kind of Kroger. But the sad fact was Shelley never signed any kind of contract with Kroger or Kroger's developer. So after she had spent $5 million of your dollars on options, surveyors work, real estate appraisals, contracts, and everything else, and she assembled all this, they said, no, we're not interested. And in the meantime, all those people who were getting the money for their options, they didn't invest back in their houses. She actually blighted the neighborhood by saying they were going to put a Kroger there. She's your city manager. So besides that $5 million deal, she gave a couple million to a company called Student Suites from Indianapolis, who was going to build student housing on the old Dayton Daily News site on South Ludlow. And she tore down the Schwind building and part of the Dayton Daily News building that was done in the 50s or so. And then the contractor, of course, Steve Roush, the favorite contractor of the culture of corruption, he knocked down a part of the rear of the building that he wasn't supposed to tear down. And so that part had to come down too. So all that's left standing is the original Cox building, which looks like a bank. Roush now owns it, and the city had to pour a couple extra million to finish in the demolition that Roush didn't do. Now, if you know the name Steve Roush, you know all about the culture of corruption because he was in the 2nd round of indictments. But we were going to come to the culture of corruption later. So this commission, these 5 people, The mayor and the 4 commissioners, they're the ones who hired the city manager. They're the ones who give her raises. They're the ones who keep her in power. And there is no reason to keep Shelley Dickstein in office doing anything. Period. End of story. So, why is Shelley still there? Because it takes 3 votes to make anything happen. And Mims, Shaw, and Joseph vote as a block every time. Turner, Sauce, and Fairchild, the real Democrats on the commission, not the Friends and Family Democrats, they can't do anything as only 2 people. That's not true, but we've seen Gary Leitzel as one person on the commission. We've seen Mary Wiseman as one person on the commission. We even saw Mike Turner as one person on the commission. They were able to maneuver and manipulate. But those were much better politicians than what we have right now. So, there is a primary coming up on May 2nd. If you live in the city of Dayton, you get to vote for 2 of the 6 candidates who are running. 2 of 6. Now, my advice to you is research all 6, but do yourself a favor and vote for anybody but Matt Joseph and Chris Shaw. They need to go. Both of them. There is no room on that commission for them. So, in the primary, there will be a lot of money spent to try to get those 2 back on the ballot. They've already sent out a mailer. I should have brought it. It's downstairs. Big mailer telling you they're the endorsed Democrats. Well, let's talk about endorsed Democrats. Endorsed Democrats means basically that 50 people in a room decide on who's going to do it. And it's usually in the back room. And who's going to get endorsed. In fact, now the Democratic Party it's automatic. If you're an incumbent, you're automatically endorsed. There's not even a vote on it. But this is a nonpartisan election, and the Democratic Party endorsed Joey Williams, who ran for city commission, even though he was an FBI snitch, wearing a wire, already caught accepting bribes, with an agreement to step down if reelected. And so he would then be charged later. That all happened, folks. April 30th of 2019, he was indicted. He finally ended up getting sentenced to a year in prison. He did about 3 months and got out early because of COVID. And he had to have 2 other votes. So it wasn't Fairchild and it wasn't Sauce because Fairchild replaced him in a special election. So you got to look at Nan Whaley, Jeff Mims, Chris Shaw, or Matt Joseph as 2 of the other votes. And in case you don't know it, I have a federal case trying to get the tapes that were played to the grand jury of Nan Whaley doing things that weren't very kosher and under FOIA. Now you say, oh, grand juries, you can't get those tapes? Yes, you can. If it's a government official acting badly, you can. And we're waiting. It's in the 6th Circuit Court of Appeals, and we will know something more middle of April is when they're going to file their brief. So, culture of corruption, at least 3 of them voted to give contracts like the one to tear down the Dayton Daily News building. Roush made a lot of money. Roush was indicted later. He got off with a small fine. We still don't know everything, but we do know that the Montgomery County Democratic Party takes care of friends and family, not you. So, early voting opened today, so you can go vote, but I'm always of the opinion you should wait till the last minute to find out what happens, because who knows? The FBI and the DOJ could indict Joseph and Shaw this week, next week, the week after, so you might not want to vote for them until you absolutely know that they're not going to prison too. So, you get 2 votes. Top 4 move on, and in the fall, in November, you get again 2 votes, and the top 2 vote getters become the commissioners. Once Fairchild and Turner Sauce have it, 1 other vote that's not in the Democratic Party Friends and Family program, things will start changing. So, what would I change? And I'm going to start out with the thing that just happened this morning. We had another inmate die in the jail. This is the 5th inmate, and it's only the 4th month. Now, the jail's trying to say, all these people, they're getting busted, they're coming in, they're drug addicts, and like they're swallowing packets of drugs, they're pooping them out a couple days later and taking them, and they're overdosing. I don't buy it. I don't buy that all these people are smart enough to have some extra dope wrapped up tight in something swallowable that they can swallow, and are all that in love with pulling it out of their poop. You hear me? I don't think it's happening. I think the jail is unsafe. I already proved it. If you go to Esrati.com/deadly, you can see that they used to pepper spray inmates in restraints. There is a litany of problems in that jail. And instead of prosecuting Sheriff Phil Plummer, he got promoted up to be a state rep, and we now have Rob Streck, who manages to stay under the radar. But look, I don't believe anybody should go and get a death sentence on a misdemeanor theft charge, which is what happened to the woman today. So, I want to protect the citizens of Dayton to know that they're not going to go to the Montgomery County Jail and die or get tortured or have their arms broken or have concussions. All these things have happened. We need a jail, and we need a mental health facility for people with mental health issues that is separate. That would be a big change in this community. Next up, we've been spending money hand over fist demolishing properties for 20 years. And guess what? We never get ahead. We have spent millions upon millions tearing down buildings, and they're still there. Did it occur to anybody that just tearing down other people's problems does not make your community a better place? Does it occur to you that your tax dollars shouldn't have to pay for somebody else's mistakes? Why aren't we going after the banks? Why aren't we going after the LLCs? Why aren't we going after the slumlords? And what are we doing to make sure these houses don't fall into that state of disrepair? What are we doing to make sure they stay occupied, that gutters get fixed, that roofs get patched, that the streets are safe, the power stays on, that there are people in these buildings? Because we can't keep affording to tear them down, especially when it's making the culture of corruption look really smart, because they keep getting more money into their campaign coffers. So from these demolition contractors, then the DOJ are still hot on the tail. So how else is there a culture of corruption? I know a lot of small businesses. I help them. I work with them owning an ad agency. And I have seen many businesses start up with zero help from the city. My friend Amy opened Holy Grounds just before COVID. My friend James Nunez opened Texas Beef and Cattle on the west side in Wright Dunbar. None of these people got big checks. None of them got help. My friend Brian Higgins, who was caught in the culture of corruption, yes, I know a felon, he opened up Quincy's in the old Chicken Louie's, and all he asked for was to reconnect the driveway to the street, Great Miami Boulevard, after the city had cut it off in their urban renewal plan. And they told him $30,000 to fix their mistake. All of a sudden, a guy named Anthony Head, he says, I want to open up that location as a chicken joint. And all of a sudden, the city's got $178,000. But of course, there has to be a demolition involved. So the house that used to have at least 5 or 6 immigrants living in it from Nigeria is going to get torn down so Chef Head can have a drive-through. Now, I don't remember any process that there was to apply for these money or any evaluation system or what the criteria is, but if you read my post, you will find out more about Chef Head, and you will wonder why this not so fine. Okay, so what do you pay your tax dollars for? Well, has anybody driven on a road as bad as Wayne Avenue when they're going through Kettering, or Oakwood, or Centerville, or Beaver Creek, or Riverside, or even Trotwood, that road is unbelievably bad. But we don't have money to pave it? Really? Have you ever seen as much? I want you to do this. When you're looking on your street, go look in the gutters. When you're driving along, look at the debris in the gutters. Look at the gravel, the dirt, the leaves, the trash on your street. Why? Because you don't see that in Kettering. When they sweep the streets, and they don't go around cars. They go right along the edge. And they have people move their cars. Why can't we do that in Dayton? And I see we've got somebody's cat likes listening to my voice. Thank you. Awesome. Anyways, so again, street sweeping is something that really needs to be done well. All right. I see a comment on Facebook. Couch received about a $30K raise in a year. I don't know what that comment is about, but it says my Facebook Live video is also ended, so I'm not sure what's happening there. Anyways, so what do we want? We want America's cleanest, safest city like we used to have. Remember Paul Leonard? He was the mayor, the rock and roll mayor. But I want to add that it's also the most affordable city because we have a lot of poor people here and they're not getting any wealthier. And it's our job to try to raise the people of Dayton out of poverty. And there are some things we can do to fix that. And while some of you might say, oh, those are giveaways or something else, let me explain some things. So if you've seen all the warehouses that are being built out by the airport, that's on City of Dayton property. Quite a few of them. And those are jobs, and they're not great jobs. They're $15 an hour, $18 an hour warehouse jobs. They're hard work and everything else. But you notice they didn't put them on the site of the old Dayton tire plant or the old McCall plant or anywhere else right on the highway. No, they put them up by the airport, and they put them far away from Dayton residents. And the only way they're going to get there is they're going to drive. So all these people are driving there and all these trucks are going there. And all of a sudden now, instead of using the rail lines that were at the McCall plant, or I don't know if any of you know this, but the RTA fare box doesn't generate much of RTA's revenue. Most RTA's revenue comes from federal dollars, from state dollars, and from a part of our sales tax. So I want to discuss that and work out ways to do it. Now you say, oh, they can't do it for free. Oh, yes, they can. They do it here so the UD kids, and they used to be for the Miami Valley Hospital Premier employees to get back and forth between downtown and the CareSource people. But those people all pulled out of downtown because they all learned work from home is a lot cheaper. But we have a free bus in Dayton, but it's only for rich college kids to get to the arcade. So we can fix that. So other things, and I'm going to try to wrap this up pretty quick, and I'd like to thank those of you who are watching, and remember you can ask questions and I will try to respond in real time. So ever since I started going to the commission back in 1986 when I first bought my house, and I had problems with the city because they didn't like the kind of garage door I put on, I never felt like I was heard, listened to, or responded to. Okay? And Zen Girl, thank you very much. You've been made happy, or it's still something that we need to work on. Just like submitting a ticket on a website for help, a help desk, that's what should happen every time you come to a commission meeting. Real responses to citizens. Then there's another issue. I've never seen an organization that calls every department head in just to sit there and watch the meeting and contribute zero. Just in case you might have a question, they all have to be there? No. Every day they have, every commission meeting, they have 30 to 40 city employees sitting there, not working, paying them all $100,000 a month, $100,000 a year plus. They're not contributing anything. So if you aren't going to make a report or answer questions that we already know about that we're going to ask beforehand, because the city commission gets an agenda, which according to Gary Lightsall, the Dems never read. Unless there's a reason for you to answer a question, it can wait a week. there's no need for instant response from anybody in any of these departments, especially if we create a help desk system. So we can get more of our employees, high-paid employees, working on problems to solve your problems. And we should have metrics. I want to know how many kids were absent every week from Dayton Public Schools at the City Commission. I want to know about how many homes were broken into. I want to know how many speeding tickets were given, how many housing violations were issued. I want to know how many building permits were applied for, what kind of things we have. I want actual tracking of information, and I want to make it searchable online, because the way they do it now is not ADA compliant or easy to research and make a change. And don't get a better job just to give me more money, but hey, I want you to realize that endorsed by the Montgomery County Democratic Party means nothing, and realize that the last time the two endorsed candidates lost to Shanice Turner-Sloss and Darrell Fairchild, and for good reason. Now, for the few of you who seem to think that they were grandstanding when they said they wouldn't vote for the budget as an emergency, how dare you? I'm going to tell you right now, that was the right thing to do. The city manager had a whole year to establish that budget, and she couldn't. And to put it on the commission to vote on it as an emergency should have been reason for her to get walking papers. This has been going on for too long. It needs to change. I'm going to say one other thing. Starting in January, I started swimming at the Lori Center. Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, but guess what? For a while they were doing work on the Princeton Center, so they had enough lifeguards. They said they were open 5 days a week, and I swam 5 days a week. Now I can only swim 3 days a week in the morning, and I can't swim at all on the weekends. I want you to go and compare the hours of operation of the Kettering pools and the Dayton pools and wonder why the city of Dayton can't even keep a swimming pool open for its citizens. The price is phenomenal. The pool's great. I love it. It's making me feel better. But seriously, folks, you've gotten fed dog food for so long, being told it's steak, you don't know what a hamburger tastes like anymore. So, if you want to find out more, electesrari.com does not have updated information yet on my campaign stuff, because it took me a little longer to get on the ballot. But if you go to Esrati.com and search any issue, or just start scrolling through some of the posts, or go to the ones that are linked down below in the description, I think you'll find some really, really big ideas for the city of Dayton, and it's time that we get them on there. And by the way, the Board of Elections does everything to be the Board of Selections, and I beat them again. But the real question is, why did they never fix the petition process? Because they didn't want to. I turned in enough signatures. What happens is their process is built with ways that they could try to pretend that you were knocked off the ballot. I'm not going to put up with this BS anymore. Just one other thing about the Board of Elections. A majority of voters in Ohio are not Democrats or Republicans. They refuse to vote in either primary because they don't want to be associated with either party. It's unfortunate because it's really hard to get on the ballot as an independent. This election is nonpartisan. It won't say Democrat or Republican on anything, and the two parties should have nothing to do with it. But the Board of Elections in Ohio is run by the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. It's very expensive. It's where all the friends and family get their jobs, like my opponent, incumbent Matt Joseph's brother, who just got named to be the deputy director of the Board of Elections, even though they had to create a conflict of interest policy because he can't work on adjudicating his brother's election. Wake up, people. We have to stop allowing these two political parties to divide us, to separate us, and to make themselves do well while you suffer. So, I'm going to try to do this every Tuesday. I might do it on occasion more. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit the little bell, and you'll know about the next meeting. I'd like to thank all of you that dialed in. I really appreciate it. And I hope we can get this to go smoother next time. I saw we're having some issues with the streaming quality. I'm sorry.